billion of trade, and 400,000 people passed through the Canada-U.S. border. Last week, I went to St. Bernard-de-la-Colle, accompanied by the Minister of Public Safety of Quebec, François Bonnardel, to speak directly with frontline CBSA agents who work on site to protect our borders.
I've just returned, having met with the RCMP's Marine Border Enforcement Team and visited the Border Integrity Operations Centre. Through joint efforts from Canada and the United States, less than 1% of the illegal drugs and crossings into the United States came from Canada. We have a strong border, and we are building a stronger one, an interconnected system to keep each other safe. And nowhere is this more apparent than Canada's firefighters assisting American crews fighting the worst wildfires Los Angeles has ever seen. Canada and the United States have a long, mutually beneficial relationship that keeps our economy strong and our people safe. This hasn't changed at all. To keep it that way, we must always work to maintain and improve that relationship. And when it comes to border security, we are tackling the flow of illegal drugs, guns, and irregular migration. At the federal level, we have been absolutely committed to working with all provinces and territories as we meet these challenges head-on for both Canada and the United States. I'd like to sincerely thank our provincial and territorial partners who are working hard to provide additional assistance to defend Canada's border under our Team Canada approach, especially Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, who have stepped up. And to the incredible businesses who are working with us, thank you also for your outreach and engagement with your American counterparts. We must work together to protect our people, our jobs, and our economy. Last month, our government presented a comprehensive border plan to bolster the security of our shared border and further increase the level of collaboration with our American counterparts. That border plan invests $1.3 billion to further strengthen our border security with more personnel, more tools, advanced technology, drones, surveillance equipment, and helicopters. These investments are already helping to enhance Canada's border surveillance. Let me highlight some of the key measures we have already taken. As of December 23rd, we ended the practice of flag polling, which occurred when foreign nationals left Canada for a short time, only to re-enter Canada to access immigration services more quickly. Ending this practice will allow border officers to fully concentrate on border enforcement, saving 8,000 days of work for border agents. We've deployed 60 new drones along our border with the United States, and we will be deploying additional surveillance towers. We are acquiring new technology, such as X-rays, mobile X-rays, and handheld chemical analyzers. As of this week, we are deploying new helicopters at the Canada-U.S. border. These will help us to further enhance our border surveillance and our intelligence operations, again with our American partners. As further proof of our strong relationship with the United States, Canada is launching the first ever pre-clearance operation in the U.S. at Cannon Corners, New York, which I visited last week. With this operation, we'll be the first country to establish pre-clearance on U.S. soil, where Canadian Border Services officers will work at a shared facility alongside U.S. officers. To minimize the number of individuals trying to cross the border illegally between ports of entry and to keep dangerous individuals out of North America, we've increased the CBSA and RCMP's surge capacity. Last year, the CBSA removed over 16,800 individuals from Canada. That's more than double compared to 2021. Through our border plan, we're investing additional resources to further increase removals by another 25% this year. As of January 6th, the CBSA adjusted its hours of service at land ports of entry to align with those of the United States. This will allow both countries to use our resources more efficiently, as we'll be able to deploy officers to busier ports of entry when required. Au cours des 2 dernières semaines,
over the last 2 weeks, our government and the governments of provinces and territories carried out planning exercises which bore significant fruits. This was set to head off any eventuality at the border.
Line of defense to stop illegal drugs and precursor chemicals from entering and exiting Canada. The RCMP also continues its efforts to detect, to investigate, and to disrupt criminal threats by targeting transnational and serious organized crime groups involved in the production and the trafficking of illegal substances, including opioids. To ensure law and border enforcement have the tools they need to detect and address fentanyl and its precursors, a huge challenge for this country and the United States, we've invested $77.7 million to expand Health Canada's laboratory and regulatory capabilities. These measures I've just outlined are the steps we have taken just as of late. We will continue to work with our American partners to ensure that our border is the most secure and efficient in the world. The foundation of the Canada-U.S. relationship is strong, and Canada looks forward to continuing our work with our neighbours and our partners. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Minister Miller.
Thanks, David. Over the last year, we've taken a series of actions to reinforce the integrity of our immigration system and programs contributing to the collective effort to ensure public safety and the orderly management of the shared border with the U.S. Les mesures qu'on a prises ont déjà.
These steps have and will continue to have a measurable impact on the management of our immigration programs and the strengthening of our national security at a critical moment for both our country and our neighbors to the south. Canada and the United States, as David noted, have close person-to-person ties and a powerful economic partnership based on secure circulation of goods and individuals across the border. This partnership supports millions of jobs and households in both countries.
That a robust, well-managed immigration system is essential to building a safer, stronger North American perimeter. A well-managed immigration system doesn't mean the government is abandoning our quintessentially Canadian values. It's actually quite the contrary. These values depend on a well-managed system that bolsters that integrity that people can trust. And Canadians can also trust that immigration remains central to our national identity and critical to our well-being, as well as our long-term prosperity. That being said, there's no question that an increased migration of different natures has led to significant rise in the number of people seeking asylum in safe countries like Canada, one of the safest, if not the safest in the world. And despite having the best immigration and refugee system in the world, it's been a challenge to keep up. Unfortunately, it's also caused more bad actors to come out of the shadows looking to exploit those who are at their most vulnerable as they take a very difficult decision to move to another country and to profit over those seeking a better life. In response, we've taken decisive steps throughout the last year to strengthen our asylum system, including proposing new consequences for those who try to exploit it. Canada and the U.S. have a long history of collaborating to uphold the integrity of our respective systems. That means, first and foremost, working together. Rappelez-vous qu'au début de l'année,
I will remind you that in early 2023, we secured a significant achievement together by closing the irregular border crossing at Roxham Road and by expanding our Safe Third Country Agreement to encompass the entire land border as well as internal waterways. This step had a colossal impact. It reduced the number of asylum claims from illegal border crossers from 165 a day to 12 a day. In February, responding to a clear increase of fraud in the asylum system, as can be seen in the increasing number of rejected, withdrawn, or abandoned applications, we put in place a partial visa requirement for Mexican nationals. Since that time, asylum claims from Mexican citizens in our airports decreased by 97% compared to 2023.
Evidence of patterns of abuse in our visitor visas, we put in place new measures to detect fraud. And since then, we've made and seen a major reduction in the number of asylum claims from people who've been issued temporary resident visas. And visa refusals are also up by more than 61% with countries where we spotted the highest levels of abuse. You've been distributed a number of charts that evidence that in a more graphic way. You can do with those what you will, but there's a number of important data points we think are significant that chart the course of the progress that's been achieved over the last year. What
is more, we are putting in place new regulations to prevent people from advising others to abuse our system and to rapidly penalize those who attempt to do so. Most immigration and citizenship consultants adhere to strict professional standards, but some provide paid advice with no authorization or encourage people to be fraudulent. New regulations will give IRCC and the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants more powers to penalize these individuals. We are proposing monetary penalties up to $1.5 million, as well as other consequences, such as naming and shaming bad actors on our website.
Not only enhance Canada's ability to manage those who enter the country, but also strengthen border security. They've also proven effective at protecting the Canada-U.S. border from irregular southbound crossings. After we imposed the partial visa requirement that I mentioned earlier for Mexican nationals, we've seen a rapid decline in Canada being used as a backdoor into the U.S. A number of the Mexican nationals intercepted while trying to cross illegally has fallen by 72% since June alone. I can also report that our heightened scrutiny of visitor visa applications has led to an 89% overall reduction in foreign nationals crossing illegally into the United States over that same period. And since launching our system to verify every study permit application that corresponds with an authentic letter of acceptance, which has been a challenge over the last year from an accredited post-secondary learning institution, we've seen a 91% drop in illegal U.S. crossings by those with and those holding Canadian study permits.
More recently, as David noted, we put an end to the practice of flag polling. That's when foreign nationals leave Canada and immediately come back in over a land border in order to access immigration services on the same day, instead of putting in an application online and waiting their turn properly. Flag polling used up precious border resources and kept Canadian and American agents from doing more important tasks. Ending this practice freed up 8,000 workdays. That's the equivalent of one person working very hard for 20 years straight. These changes will help prevent fraud and facilitate the legal cross-border circulation of goods, services, and people that our countries depend on.
Between countries is also crucial to a safe and orderly migration. Adding to our existing processes of sharing relevant data on foreign nationals applying to immigrate to either country, we've extended our information sharing agreement with the Americans and will now share immigration-related information on permanent residents in both Canada and the U.S. This information is really mission critical to having a safe border. And by granting this extensions, both countries are better equipped to screen applicants and make informed migration decisions and also prevent fraud. We
continue to observe the destabilizing influence of worldwide disinformation. That is why, for our programs to be successful and for newcomers to thrive in Canada, ad campaigns this year will seek to inform potential newcomers about international study permits and the Canadian asylum process.
Taken measures that we're implementing and they're working. There are clear signs of that: reduced southbound apprehensions, fewer asylum claims, less fraud and abuse. This is concrete, important progress. Évidemment, ce travail n'est pas nouveau, il a persisté.
These efforts are not new. They've been going on over a number of administrations, both American ones and Canadian ones over the 9 years we were in power.
Because the fact is that this collaboration is in the shared interests of both Canadians and Americans. On that, thank you. And both David and I are happy to take your questions.
Merci, thank you. We'll now go to the floor. And if you are attending this press conference on Zoom, please use the raise hand function at this time. And I can recognize you later on. Si vous êtes sur Zoom, vous pouvez utiliser la fonction lever la main maintenant.
If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function, and I will recognize you.
Thank you, ministers. I'm curious to know about your ability to detain illegal people who cross illegally while you process them. What is that capacity at? And if you could also elaborate, we know that in terms of the U.S. figures, nearly 20,000 migrants from Canada have tried to cross into the U.S. How many are the Americans sending back to us? I'm curious to know if that process happens and if that's also adding to our responsibility to detain and process.
Maybe I'll ask you. Erin?
Sure. Can you hear me? So when people cross irregularly in between the ports of entry and they are intercepted and brought to CBSA, we process them in accordance with the Safe Third Country Agreement, and we return them immediately. So we will use, we have very short-term detention if we're in the middle of the night or it's taking a little bit longer, but we have the capacity to hold people while we process them pending their return to the U.S.
Are the Americans sending any individuals back to us as per that Safe Third Country if they arrived in Canada first? Has that been happening?
So every day, CBSA and our counterpart organization, CBP, implement the Safe Third Country Agreement, which is to say if people cross irregularly or at ports of entry and they don't qualify for one of the exceptions, they're returned to the country that they come from, and we do that every day.
I'm asking for numbers, though, and whether or not there's been an increase, particularly from the Americans saying, you know, we've determined they entered Canada, they came through Canada, and we are sending them back for you to deal with.
Those numbers have been decreasing, as the minister indicated. The number of southbound interceptions that are returned to us has been steadily decreasing.
But no solid numbers as to what that decrease is.
We could provide numbers. We can follow up with numbers.